Hi there, this is Sifu Slim, and I am excited to bring you another interview, discussion, sharing time with Jim Dreaver, Dreaver. He's available at jimdreaver.com, and his email is jdreaver@aol.com. And if you'd care to send him a note to his email or through his website, he will respond if you request a book with a PDF of his book, Untriggerable. Jim, do you want to say a few words about Untriggerable?
Yes, thank you, Sifu. Untriggerable is about basically not being able to be triggered. And the less identified you are with your ego, the less you can be triggered. Triggers always happen because of the ego, the I has taken something personally. And the more we see we're not this I, because it comes and goes, shifts and changes, the freer we are, the more untriggerable we are.
Interesting that I heard just a few things you said, and I feel like I could do another hour on Untriggerable. So maybe sometime in the future, we'll do, as they say, circle back to Untriggerable. Maybe we can even hear back from some guests on what they thought about your book. And if they send you an email to let you know what they thought, maybe you could share some of that and we could respond to them. So today you had a really interesting topic you wanted to discuss, and that's called How Mastering Our Conflicted Ego Heals Our World. So I'm going to say what I think of when I see the title you wanted to talk about today. Our conflicted ego, if you think of a pie chart, has all these different pieces. Or if you think of the halo around the head or a crown around the head, and if you think the crown of thorns in the Bible, you've got all these different pieces either stabbing at you in your mind and your body or pulling at you. So think about how conflicted we can be just by staying in our mind. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, and see if you could comment on the conflicted minds that we walk around with, carrying them in our bodies day in and day out.
Yes, I'd be happy to, Sifu. People get triggered because they don't know that they're not their mind. They think they are their mind. They think they're their ego. This is me. Yeah, this is me. What do you mean? This is not me. This is me. But we're not this me at all, psychologically, emotionally. We're always, because this me, this ego self comes and goes, shifts and changes. And we're not anything that comes and goes, shifts and changes. We're what is always here right now. We're always this right now. But this is why the teaching of presence is so important. But we can only be present to the degree that we're not identified with their ego. So I teach people how to wake up to freedom from their ego. The more free you are of your ego, the less you can be triggered, and that helps heal our world.
So Jim, a lot of other thoughts came up when you said your last minute or two, and I'm thinking about the busy mind and then the mouth that sometimes doesn't do the filtration process from our mind down to our mouth. We don't feel, we don't take the moment to think about that. We don't stop before the reaction. We often speak with a reaction to an event or to what somebody said. So we don't allow the processing and the peace to work that thought over before we blurt it out. And I had shown you this before: quick to listen, slow to speak. And that's something that I found somebody had left as a bookmark in a book. And I picked that up and I put it on my desk. And I know some people who have Post-it notes all over the side of their wall, their desk. They have a bulletin board. That's a little much for me. I think I may have done something along those lines with a vision board once and had some more notes than I do now. But I try to do more on my computer and on keeping records on my email and in my head rather than do that. But that quick to listen sounds a lot like it would fit in with what you're talking about living in the now and not bringing these stories that we're carrying around on our back and the angst that they sometimes generate to prohibit us from having a good life and a good interaction with our planet and with other people and other things in our walk. Does that sound like it makes sense, Jim?
It makes a lot of sense. Yes, perhaps I can guide you through meditation, which would help the viewers too. So anybody who's listening to this, watching it, can participate. So just breathe and relax, close your eyes. Yes, close your eyes. Breathe and relax, and step back with your awareness slightly behind and above your head. Out of the story of your mind. Place slightly behind and above your head, which is more the real you, the you that is universal and sees everything. And then just pay attention to the sensations and pay attention first to the sounds, actually, the sounds you hear. The sound of my voice coming and going, the sounds of your environment. Maybe a car passing by on the street. And notice how these sounds come and go, shift and change. My voice comes out of silence and dissolves back into silence. But you, the awareness of the sounds, the hearer, the listener to the sounds, are always here. You are the listening. And shift your attention to your body sensations and feelings. Pay attention to the body sensations and feelings and notice how they shift and change, come and go too. But you, the witness to changing, ever-changing body sensations and feelings, are always here. You're the changeless awareness. Changeless awareness is always here. And finally, pay attention to the thoughts in your mind, passing through your mind, coming and going of thought, even the I thought, the me thought, the thought you most personally identify with. That too comes and goes. You're not even that. What you are is the step back awareness behind your head. You're this beautiful aware being who's always present, always here now. So just breathe and relax into that vast feeling of vastness, of expansion, of being who and what you really are. Open your eyes now.
Certainly a peaceful sensation seems to minimize the conflict in our ego and allows us to get grounded and just slows everything down, and it seems to reorganize everything in the mind, body, spirit, and where we are.
Yes, it does. And it helps us see more and more, oh, I'm not my ego. I have an ego, but I'm not my ego. Just like I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. I have a story, but I'm not my story. I have an emotional history, but not my emotional history. This is what awakening is, or enlightenment, or self-realization, or mastery. True mastery is ego mastery. And yes.
If you looked at the word mastering, like something like a martial arts or a conflicted ego, what comes to mind when you think of the word mastery?
What comes to my mind is that you know you're bigger than it. You can master it. You know you're bigger than whatever happens to you. The mastery of the ego, self-mastery or self-realization, is knowing that you are bigger than anything that can happen to you, even death. You know that you're afraid of death.
Do you have any time over the next year to 3 years to write a book with a title, You Are Bigger Than Death?
Maybe I'll do that someday.
Maybe you'll do it. I really like that, bigger than death. I mean, why not? So if I show up at martial arts and I'm doing the best I can in a peaceful, non over the top way. I'm not hurting myself or others, doing my best. And if I lose 5 different matches with 5 different opponents or all with the same opponent, it's just not my day. Or maybe that person's coming up and I'm getting older. I'm just trying to maintain what ability I have, and I'm not increasing. I'm not improving. There's a decline in some of my abilities. Why can't I just be with that and acknowledge it, be aware of it, and say, hey, I'm happy to be alive, and I'm just here to do my best and be a kindred spirit with the other people. Tell me what you think about that, Jim, and mastery through the aging process.
Oh, of course, I'm almost 75 now, so I've had a lot of experience of the aging process, and it ain't pretty. I mean, it's of course, I was affected by 3 strokes back when I was early 50s, and it's created certain limitations in me. But spiritually and emotionally, I feel as clear and present as ever. Yeah.
So some things come easier to you now, and some physical things are much more challenging. So you just have to, I guess, be with that and realize that you help people, and now it's time sometimes to reach out and have them help you.
Exactly. Like you helped me get out of the chair last night. Twice.
I can currently do it, so I'm happy to share that help.
Yeah.
Your title is so fascinating. We've got one sentence here. I didn't quite to know what to do with it, partially because I didn't put a lot of time into it, but over yesterday and today, I thought about the title, and here's one thing I came up with, because you are aware that I've studied history a lot. George S. Patton, general
Yes.
in the Second World War, athlete himself in the Olympics. I think it was the 1912 Olympics, somewhere in the early teens before World War I. He was in a few different, maybe one different thing, like the something that was like no, I know what he was. He was an equestrian in the Olympics, and he was also a good pistol shooter. So athletic guy, West Point, I believe, and then a war man in World War I and World War II, and then he passed away shortly after the Germans surrendered in a Jeep accident, is what the official account says. There are lots of debate about that, but he said things that were very profound about war and about knowing. He felt as though he was dead certain that he had been in certain places in previous times, in the Middle Ages and BC. He felt his soul and his something to do with his background had been at these battlefields before, and he could feel them. So very interesting guy. So I'm trying to think about ego and the most extreme demonstration that one can do with an ego, which would perhaps be dominating someone, killing someone, or if you're running the country, you attack and you gain territory and kill others and who are prohibiting you from attempting to do that. So George Patton had to think about how to identify his enemy. And he had to think about things like getting to know them. He said things along the lines that, like, the Soviets are allies. He knew that we were going to have problems with them in the future. So how knowing about your enemies helps prevent them attacking us in the future. So those are some of the thoughts about George Patton. So where do we go in terms of running a country, running a tribe, having that survival mechanism that's a human trait to protect ourselves and the people in our tribe, Jim? How do we handle that part of the politic and the politics of being a human, and then the healing part of the world with our removing the conflicted ego? So how do those two things work together, Jim, and make some sense?
Good question, Sifu. Yes. So I think of the example of Gandhi, right? Gandhi, who was responsible single-handedly for having the British leave India. He accomplished a lot physically, or because, because India, British did leave India. Remember that line in Gandhi, who the British Raj governor said, Mr. Gandhi, do you expect us just to walk out of here, leave it? Something like that. And he said, yes, basically I do. And so the thing is, we still have an ego. And whenever we use the word I or me, that's our ego, basically speaking. But it's our ego, when we know another ego, which is mastery of the ego, and the ego becomes the servant of our consciousness. I remember saying that the ego makes a terrible master, but a very, very good servant. So we use the ego as a servant. So in a way, I've heard talk of servant leadership, and so it's a way, servant leadership is a kind of leadership that serves the people, their well-being. So yes, we can do a lot with an enlightened ego, in effect.
Up at the camera, if you wouldn't mind. The idea of having an enemy, then if you're a Buddhist or if you are an awakened person or an enlightened person, how do they come to terms with the actual thinking of other people as they think about their enemies, or as they themselves, before they were awakened or enlightened, might have an enemy, but maybe when they become awakened, they don't have any enemies? How are some of the thinking of the masters who you've read? What do they think about those types of things, Jim?
When you awaken and free, you don't have any enemies. Even people who want to kill you, they're not your enemy. But maybe that's why we have to maintain an army, police force. There's dangerous people out there. But when we're awakened and free, when we've mastered our ego, then I think that, I don't know any politicians that have mastered their ego would say they mastered their ego yet, but maybe a few in this country are getting close to it.
Okay, so no enemies. And how about the idea of protecting oneself, or let's say Gandhi protecting his food so that his family has a way to live? Was that something he would have protected? I mean, he was able to get self-rule back from the British. How about the idea of protecting their food so he can eat tomorrow for himself and his family?
Well, if the source of food dries up in one area, was stolen, for example, then you look for another place, another source of food. There's always enough food around. You just have to discover the source of it. I think that's how Gandhi would have handled it.
Let's take a quick drink break. So besides modern life with 20th century history, 21st century current events, I was thinking about the hunter-gatherers. I mentioned before that I've had the opportunity to study hunting and gathering tribal people for probably since 2008. It's been fascinating to me because that's hundreds of thousands and millions of years of people living in bands and tribes, etc. So I'm trying to think of an enemy for those people, and it would be anyone with the potential to steal our food. In terms of, this is how they thought in many tribes that I've read about, many bands of people, anyone with the potential to steal our food or the potential from keeping us from getting what we want now or in the future. So that's maybe a tribal person. So a tribal person with all the wonderful medicine that they had to, honor the kill, honor each other in the tribe, trade with people who may have been their enemies before for things that they needed, to take young people from other tribes, bring them into their tribe, and vice versa, to keep the gene pool mixed. And so they have all of these things, but there is this sense, like a chimpanzee or other primates, there's a sense of our territory, and we must defend that territory because that's how we live. That's our water, that's our buffalo, those are our trees to make things with, canoes and what have you. So how do we think about tribal people in terms of some of the things that might have been the peaceful and the honoring and the spiritual versus the often vicious, or at times I should say, vicious defending or attacking of their rivals, Jim?
That's a good question, Sifu. We have to move beyond tribalism. We keep all that's good in the tribe, rituals and ceremonies, and all its healing, positive. We have to, the more we eliminate the ego, or not eliminate the ego, but see that we're not it. That's all really awakening is. It's about seeing that our ego comes and goes. We're not an ego because it comes and goes. We're not an ego that comes and goes. We're what is always here. So this way, in the meditation we did, as you step back behind you and above your head, it's going through your mind, right? This is like the real you. And the real you is beautiful, clear, spacious, loving. That's all of us. That's what we all want. And the more we see that we're not our ego, we're not our story, the more we open up to our true nature, the beautiful, loving people we really are.
It's a wonderful way to live, eh, Jim?
Sure is. Sure is.
So go ahead.
I've given my life to this. And yeah, it's a wonderful way to live.
So I'll mention a little bit about your bio, Jim. A native of New Zealand, met European non-dual awakening master Jean Klein in 1984 and awakened to his true nature in 1995. Jim is the author of End Your Story, Begin Your Life, published by Hampton Roads. Jim has taught at Esalen Institute and elsewhere for many years, and he does online coaching. You're welcome to contact Jim through his email or through his website. Both are listed below this video. And it's a great walk. And I think as far as the maintenance side of what you do, Jim, it's very important for me in my walk of being awakened and being a better person myself and to others, and living in the present, doing all the things that we've talked about in our previous videos. The maintenance side is hugely important. It's so easy to lapse back into our previous thought patterns, our previous behaviors. So give me some suggestions, if you would, and for the viewers out there, Jim, about maintenance of the walk that you're describing here as a great way to live.
Yeah, the walk of awakening. So the two things that you have to see. You have to see that the me cannot be found. You look inside yourself. When you say that, for example, I get triggered by this person or that person, or I get really angry when that happens, I get depressed when this happens. You got to look inside yourself with this eye, this me gets depressed or angry. And when you look inside yourself, you will not be able to find it other than as a story, as an idea, a concept in your mind. You can't find as me anywhere other than, as I said, a story, a concept. And when you realize that, you realize, my God, there's only now. This is why the teachings of presence is so important. There's only ever this moment now. So realizing that awakens love and freedom in us. And so I love the Zen saying, maybe we discussed this before, but after enlightenment, nothing changes, but everything is somehow different. Nothing changes in the sense that our circumstances are still the same. Relationships and people and so on, places. What is different now is we see with clear eyes, clear vision. We see without any story. One of the tests of being awake and free is you're able to be, you're present, your heart is open, and there's no story. You don't have to have a story behind you or telling yourself a story. This is good, this is bad. Because you exist with fundamentally any story. You're one with the universe. You're a child of the universe.
So if we go from that mindset and that practice to being in the very competitive world, fighting for our piece of the pie, as some say, trying to gain in our occupation and have better clients, more income, better structure to work in, maybe a better office, or if you're a doctor, a clinic, those types of things. And there are roadblocks in our way, a supervisor at work, a colleague at work who are using behavior to try to trip us up, maybe pretending, Jim, that they're connected to us in some way to gain information or learn about our priorities, and then find a way to use that against us and trip us up, as I've said. So how does one go from their own practice and their own peacefulness to being able to actually obtain what they think they want to obtain in the world of productivity and professionalism?
Good question, Sifu, again. So you have goals. Even when you're awake and free, you have goals. Outwardly, you may have a goal to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or you may have a goal to get married and start a family. You may have a goal of getting a job if you're young, and all of this still happens. Goal setting, planning, it all still happens, but you're not identify with it. You're not attached to it. Your well-being doesn't come from what you have. Your well-being comes from deep within you, from this place of being at peace, knowing yourself as a changeless awareness in which everything comes and goes. So, for example, you mentioned a workmate, work colleague who doesn't have your best interests at heart and seeking to undermine you. I would advise someone in that situation to, the freer you are, the less it's going to bother you first. Because then you realize they're coming from their ego. This ego who wants to see harm to come to somebody. And you may ask them, you may gently confront them. It looks like you have it in for me. Is that true? You have it in for me. Is that true? And they may lie. They may say, I don't have it. What makes you think that? And but the more truly free you are of your ego, the less it will bother you. And that frees you up to focus on what's important to you, your own goals and your own well-being.
The more you can pursue your well-being and your goals, if the more truly free you are of your ego.
Yes. Because in a way, you achieve the ultimate goal. You're the source of, when you awaken to freedom, you discover yourself as the changeless awareness, which is always here. And as that changes awareness, your emotional state is 80% of the time one of ease, harmony, and flow. 90% of the time, ease, harmony, and flow. So you've already achieved the ultimate source of feeling good, because you feel good all the time. Even when you don't feel good physically, you still feel good underneath that, and because you're at peace. You don't resist anything. Non-resistance is a big factor.
I'm going to take a drink break. So the best-selling books have come out over the last 20 years about the laws of attraction. And I can think of behavior of mine where I was worried, or I was too excited, or I was uncomfortable. And how does that affect people? It's not a great way to pursue that law of attraction. Now, the law of attraction isn't to amass things, in my opinion. It's to find your calling. It's to find where you fit in so you can help others. And by doing so, you help yourself. So those are some of the things about the law of attraction. And when you talk about the more truly free you are of your ego, the more you can pursue your goals and your well-being, your awakening being the ultimate goal. Right now, I'm glowing thinking about all those wonderful things. And I'm happy to be 58, still being able to glow despite some of the more challenging times I've had in my life, which could have been as recent as yesterday, right? Or this morning.
Right.
So have that glow and to be pursuing the ultimate goal, which is our awakening. Think about who we're going to be attracting, whom we're going to be attracting. We're going to attract people we want. They'll see that glow, they'll honor it, and we honor the glow in them. And that's the word namaste comes from that. It's a longer way of saying, the light inside of me, it recognizes and honors the light inside of you. So I'm not necessarily saying that things that come from India and the ancients of India are the only way to live, but many different cultures had these similar ideas about the aloha spirit.
Right.
Being kind to others, doing unto others, all these things. So tell me about what you think of the things I've just said and the law of attraction and what that means to us and what our responsibility is once we have become awakened and we have our goals aligned with some of the things that I've just mentioned that I learned in this conversation with you, Jim.
So the law of attraction really is written from an ego standpoint. It's kind of refined ego, and it's still caught up in the ego, wanting success, as I understand it. When we're truly free, then we're always at peace. We resist nothing. We flow with everything, and we live in this moment now. We're always present in this moment now. And we deal with what's here now. We don't resist anything because we've seen that we're not our ego. It's the ego resists. So when we see we're not our ego, there's no resistance anymore. So we just flow with whatever is happening. We bend and it's like Aikido, right? Aikido master bends and twists with whatever's going on, takes in the aggressive energy and disarms his opponent with it. I'm speaking in your field of martial arts.
Yeah, I would guess that, and on the one hand, I can look at all the work I've done in my martial arts, various ones I've studied. I can think of it that way, or I can think of the blessing it has been to have had the opportunity to have learned about myself, to have interacted with others, to have learned from teachers who are masters. I mean, if you have a center, a martial arts center, and you're able to afford the rent and the equipment and the insurance, all this overhead stuff every month, quite often you're not just a good salesperson. Now, there are some that are out there who are like that, but the well-intentioned people I've met in the martial arts is the majority, the people who own these gyms and centers. And so I've been able to learn from these people who have been masters and have seen how I operated and worked with me to improve how I operated. So what a blessing. So even despite thinking about all that work and the blood, sweat, and tears, because there's been aches and pains and blood and sweat and a lot of preparation, a lot of fatigue and recuperation. It's been a blessing to have been part of that whole ride. Maybe talk about the hard things we do that are blessings, Jim.
Everything is a blessing. And yes, I'm going through some, as you know, well-known physical challenges myself. I had a right hip replacement about 3 months ago. And I was sick over the last few days. So I felt very weak and very not able to get easily out of chairs. And so, you know, welcome to aging, right?
Yeah.
So you just flow with that. You flow with what is. And it's a relief to sit down and finally, you know, to find comfort just in sitting down. Ah, such relief. So we have these difficulties at each stage of our lives. When I was younger, the difficulty was always in my mind, my ego. I was always motivated by, this is okay, but this isn't it. That was my trip, my mantra. This is okay, but this isn't it. I was looking for it. And finally, eventually, I found it. I found it. It was right there within me. I found it when I finally saw I wasn't my ego. And that's all that you need to do, in quote marks, do is to see. Enlightenment is all about seeing, my God, I'm not my ego. Of course I'm not my ego. So obviously the realization, I have an ego, but I'm not my ego. I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have a emotional history, but I'm not my emotional history. I have things, possessions, but I'm not my things and possessions. What I am is this beautiful, changeless awareness, which is always here. Knowing oneself as the awareness, which is always here. That's the true freedom, the true blessing, and the true beauty in life.
Geez, it's so beautiful. I don't want to stop, but it sounds like it might be a good place to wind down for today. What do you think?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for the viewers out there, Jim and I have done a number of these discussions, so please just look back and I'll make a playlist of all the ones that we've done, but we've done Jim's book, Untriggerable. We've done boredom. We've done addiction. And then today's topic, which is how mastering our conflicted ego heals our world. So we'll say a blessing that some of these things have helped you, the viewers. And if you want to connect with Jim, Dreaver at AOL.com, and will be listed below this video. And jimdreaver.com is the website. Please feel free to reach out to Jim. And if you'd like a copy of his book, send him an email and he'll respond with a PDF of Untriggerable. And I'm Sifu Slim, SIFU SLIM, available at sifuslim.com. I'm a fitness, wellness, and life coach. I also speak at workshops and organizational and corporate events on a very wide variety of topics. And if you need a specific topic handled that would help your staff, your organization, people in your group, I'd be happy to see what you need and see if I can put something together that in a presentation webinar form would be able to help you and entertain people at the same time. Very important that we entertain people who are busy people and sometimes bored themselves. So the entertaining component is not to be underestimated. So we're wishing you, from Jim and I, all the best in your health, happiness, and wellness, and your path of awakening. And we'll come back to you soon with another discussion. If you have some comments you'd like to leave below, please do that. And if you have any specific topics you'd like us to address, please list that below also. I'm Sifu Slim, saying a big aloha. Thanks so much, Jim.
You're welcome.